this, we'll move on to our next talk. We have Gokulmuthu Narayanaswamy ji joining us from Bengaluru. Namaste, Gokulmuthu ji.
Yeah, namaste.
Thank you. Thank you for making time for the session. He'll be speaking on the topic Tattvabodha, the book of Vedanta vocabulary. Just a brief introduction. Gokulmuthu ji is the director of product development at ITRON India, Bengaluru. He is a devotee and volunteer of Ramakrishna Math. He conducts classes on Bhagavad Gita, Swami Vivekananda, spiritual life, and leadership development to students and professionals. He is founder of Vivekananda Study Circle at IIT Madras. He is a mentor of Vivekananda Study Circle at IISc Bengaluru and Vivekananda Yuvaka Sangha in Halasuru, Bengaluru. He is a regular contributor of articles and book reviews to Vedanta Kesari and Prabuddha Bharata, monthly magazines of Ramakrishna Math. He has a blog called practicalphilosophy.in and wherein he has written many articles, and he holds a BTech in electrical and electronics engineering from IIT Madras and MSc engineering in computer science from IISc Bengaluru and MA in philosophy, religion and culture from Annamalai University. He is currently pursuing his PhD at IIT Kharagpur. Again, welcome Gokulmuthu ji. Please go ahead and start your session.
Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. So, thank you, Nitinji and Indica Moksha, for having this important series of talks on the Prakarana Grantha. And so I have taken up Tattvabodha as the Grantha which I want to talk about today. And Tattvabodha is one of the initial texts, the primer of Vedanta, which typically any formal course of Vedanta usually starts with. In fact, like I remember, like when almost a decade or so back, when bunch about 10-15 of us who wanted to study Brahma Sutra Chatushutri Bhashya from a monk at Ramakrishna Math. So he said, okay, fine, like I'll take the class, but first all of you should become thorough with Tattvabodha. So he recommended us to listen to Swami Paramarthanandaji's talks on Introduction to Vedanta and Tattvabodha. And once we are familiar with Tattvabodha, then he said that he will start. So we, all of us took a month to study Tattvabodha first. And then when we said we are all ready, then the Brahma Sutra classes started. So Tattvabodha is the foundational text for any kind of Vedanta study. So I think in the introduction, in the inaugural session, this was already touched upon. Like we have the Prasthanatraya, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, and Bhagavad Gita, and Shankaracharya's commentaries on them. And then to make and actually, like what I would consider them, the Bhashyas and even the Prasthanatraya, more of actually the Manana or Nididhyasana texts. But when we want to actually know in a structured way, in a systematic way, what is the truth, the Prakarana Granthas are the ones which give us. Like if you take Tattvabodha or Viveka Chudamani or Panchadashi, you know, like they deal with the entire truth, the entire teaching in a very systematic, structured way, so that we get the exposed to the knowledge and we get the knowledge of the truth. And then the doubts which we have as a process of manana get clarified in the various bhashyas, and then the Upanishads and Brahma Sutras and the Gita, they help us to, you know, like keep dwelling on the knowledge again and again. So that way, like in a way, I would say Prakarana Granthas are, you know, like primary sources for the, you know, to get to know the knowledge. And then for Shravana, Prakana Granthas are the main source. And then for Manana and Nididhyasana, we go to the Upanishads and Gita and Brahma Sutras. So that way, the knowledge of the truth is very systematically dealt with and presented in the Prakarana Granthas. And out of the Prakarana Granthas, Tattvabodha is the smallest one, and it's a it deals with all the touches upon all the topics in a very formal and gives the formal definitions. That's why Tattvabodha is called as a book of definitions. It basically gives the vocabulary. And so if you want to have, if you want to study of your own, I would recommend the book by Swami Tejomayananda. Like it's a very precise book, and he has given beautiful explanation and commentary. So that without digressing, he kind of gives you a very good coverage of Tattvabodha, and that way, all idea concepts of Vedanta. And so one beauty about Tattvabodha is it gives a top-down approach. In fact, somewhere I've seen even a mind map of Tattvabodha, which kind of is almost like a tree, right? And when you read Tattvabodha, you will find that, okay, each word is defined using a sentence. And then next, every technical word in that sentence is picked up and then given the next level of explanation. That's how it goes. And in that way, it covers the sādhana catustaya, right, with the 4 prerequisites, and then jiva, jagat, isvara, what is their nature, and then jnānam, what is the truth, what is the Advaita jnānam, and then what is jivanmukti. So these are the main topics which the text covers. And it covers in a very, very detailed way. And what I have done today is I have picked up, I've not gone, it's basically like a tree, right? And what I have done is I have just picked up some layers at the top of the tree. So which means I've not gone to the leaf, because at the leaves, you will have the very, very detailed explanations. So I have kind of stopped at a few levels higher just for the brevity of time. And so we can at least get an overview of Tattvabodha. And for people who have not exposed to Tattvabodha, it would be a good appetizer. And for people who have been through Tattvabodha, it will be a good recollection. So that is the intention of this. But this is a book, this is a handbook, and a lot of sampradayas, they memorize Tattvabodha, and some parts of Vivek Chudamani, which deal with these definitions, right? So let us enter the Tattvabodha. So the entire Tattvabodha is a prose book, and only the invocation is in poetry. So this is the only poetic part of the entire book, and the rest of it is in prose. So this is a invocation to the Lord and to the Guru. Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Vidhiyate. So, and this gives the Anubandha Chatustaya, like who is the Adhikari, like the Mumukshu, right? And what is the Vishaya, right? Tattvabodha. And what is the Prayojana, right? So when you say Mumukshu, then automatically Moksha is the Prayojana. And what is the Sambandha, like study, the knowledge is the means. So this is going to give the knowledge of the truth of the Tattva Bodha, so that we get moksha. As we say, jnānam eva, first we say jnānād eva kaivalyam. Kaivalyam is got only by jnana. And then we realize that jnānam eva kaivalyam, that knowledge is itself is the moksha. So, and what is tattva? Tattva is basically thatness. Tva means ness, right? Tattva means thatness, which is basically the substratum of everything, right? So what is so it's in a way we can say tattva is, that which is the substance or essence of what something is made of, right? So that is the tattva. So the whole thing is an analysis of what is reality by drilling into what makes up reality, right? And the entire summary of Tattvabodha comes in the first shloka, right? And then as I told you, this whole thing is like a tree of definitions. So it introduces various terms here, and then subsequently it will take each term and start analyzing it. So sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikarinam moksha sadhana bhutam tattva viveka prakaram vakshyamaha. Right? So it says, like, to the people who have the 4 prerequisites, sadhana chatushtaya, right? And for the means of to get moksha, as a means of moksha, moksha sadhana bhutam, right? And tattva viveka prakaram. So as a way of inquiry about reality, vakshyamaha, we will explain. So basically in this, like, mainly 2 words are there, sadhana chatushtaya and tattva viveka prakaram. So then, like, these 2 are what is elaborated in the subsequent. So in general, so basically the book has got 2 sections. One section describes sadhana chatushtayam, the other section describes tattva viveka, right? So that's how it goes. And when you say prakaram, basically this book deals with one particular prakriya, right? And for in Vedanta, like, we have various prakriyas. Of course, all the prakriyas follow what is called as the um, uh, you know uh, uh, so basically superimposition and removal of superimposition, right? And then this book deals with one of the prakriyas, and we will see. So first is, what is sadhana chatushtayam? Sadhana chatushtayam kim, right? And then it describes what are the 4. Nitya anitya vastu vivekah, iha mutra phala bhoga viragah, samadhi shatka sampattihi, mumukshutvam cha iti. Right? So what is sadhana chatushtayam? What Paramarthanji calls as 4 Ds: discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire. Right? So that is what is sadhana chatushtayam. And so the first one is viveka, discrimination. Viveka for what? Between permanent and transient. So because now we have not yet gone into the Vedanta, right? So for a person who is just stepping into Vedanta, one thing which is obvious is, in this world, there are things which are permanent and things which are transient. And relatively, right? Even in our goals, in our pursuits, in the objects that we have, in our own consideration of ourselves, like everywhere we find something's permanent than the other, something's more transient than the other. So the whole Vedanta starts with that discrimination, right? And then dispassion. Dispassion is vairagya, and vairagya is iha amutra artha phala bhoga, right? So dispassion towards the fruits of action here and hereafter. So basically, like, it cover. So here there are multiple things here. First thing is towards the fruits of our action, right? So it is not, so basically, which is something which the worldly people would say, this is something which we deserve, right? It is not something which is stolen or which you don't deserve, because that is already covered in asteya, right? So that we are already crossed that basic morality here, right? We are going towards vairagya. So in vairagya, when we say, so here we have vairagya even towards the fruits which we justifiably deserve. That is where vairagya comes. So the fruits of our action, and it is both here and hereafter, in this world also, and also all the heavenly pleasures or heavenly bhoga that might be there, right? So vairagya is, because some of the religions, they say, like, they have vairagya for the fruits of this world, but they show the fruits of the other world as the carrots, right? But then that is not vairagya. Vairagya is, you have complete dispassion towards fruits both here and hereafter. That is what is called as vairagya, dispassion. And then disciplines, which are 6 in number: sama, dhamma, right? Uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhana, which basically, like, is the 6 in number. Shama is control of the mind, dhamma is control of the senses. It goes that way. So there are 6 disciplines which a person who pursues Vedanta should follow. And then after that, mumukshutvam, desire for liberation. So the whole pursuit of Vedanta has the liberation as the goal. There is no other worldly goal, right? Because that's already covered in Vairagya. So we don't have any worldly success. No, the health is not the goal. Wealth is not the goal, right? Even heaven is not the goal. And Panditya is not the goal. All these things are not goals. The goal is mumukshutvam. So the goal is moksha, right? Moksha is the goal. So that should be very clear. What is the goal of this whole pursuit? So that is mumukshutvam. Now this is called the sādhana catustayam. Now after this section of the Tattvabodha takes each of them, right, and then drills into the details of each of these. It gives formal definitions for every technical term like Viveka, Vairagya, Shama, Dhamma, Uparati. For everything, there is formal definitions given in Tattvabodha. So for brevity, like we'll stop for the sadhana chatushtayam here and we'll proceed further. I'm not going deeper into this topic, right? We'll go to the next one. So the second topic in the Tattvabodha is Tattva Viveka. So Tattva Vivekaha kaha. So what is Tattva Viveka? Atma Satyam Tad Anyat Sarvam Mithya Iti. So this is the statement. This is basically the Mahavakya, right? So what is Atma? Atma is the self, the subject as the pure consciousness, right? Which is basically the Tatpada, right? So this is the Tvam-pada Artha, and Satyam is a substratum of the universe. So there are two ways of looking at Satyam. Satyam in one way is, we can say Satyam means truth, which is Trikala Bahaditam, right? So that definition. Other way is Satyam as Sat, that is a substratum, which is basically the world. So when you say Aham Brahmasmi, it is Atma Satyam, right? So basically, Atma is the essence of the self, and Sat is the essence of this universe, and both are the same. So Atma Satyam is the Mahavakya, and so Atma is the only permanent thing, and Tad Anyat Sarvam Mithya Iti. So other than that, right? Tad Anyat, everything is Mithya. Mithya is superimposition. So basically considering one as the other, right? So we have the classical example of the rope and snake, right? Rope is Satyam, and the snake which appears on the rope, which does not exist anywhere except in our own minds, which is Mithya, right? So our own mind superimposes a snake, which is Mithya, on the rope, which is Satya, and that is the idea of the Adhyasa, right? So this entire universe is as we experience is a superimposition on Atma. So basically, like, it is like the movie where I am the screen and this entire movie is projected onto me, and the movie is a superimposition and the screen is the reality. So I, the pure conscious Atma, is the screen, and this entire experience of this universe is mithya, is superimposition, on me as the substratum. So this is the basic Tattva Vivekaha. And then Tattvabodha goes ahead to explain how it is, right? How this is the Tattva Viveka. So it takes again each word, Atma Kaha. What is Atma, right? And this is one of the beautiful definitions of Atma, almost comparable to the verse in Mandukya Upanishad, right? So this is another beautiful definition where it gives two types of definitions. One is called the Lakshyartha, right? And the other one is called the, um, uh, yeah. So you have Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharirad, Vyatiriktaha, right? So this is apart from the Stula, Sukshma, and Karana Shariras. So the one definition of Atma is that it is different from these three bodies. And then pancha kosha atitaha, it is beyond the five sheaths. And then it is avastha traya sakshi, it is the witness of the three states of waking, dreaming, and sleeping. And then Satchit Ananda Swarupaha, Sun, which is of the nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss. Right? So the first three is the Tatastha Lakshana, it is called. So basically defining in relation to something else. Right? So because Atma cannot be defined in a positive way, like all the Upanishads, all our scriptures, it is defined Atma, consciousness, only in a negative way as a Tatastha Lakshana, where we say what it is not, and then to make as a pointer to what it is, right? So this is the Adhyaropa Apavada method. So using the Adhyaropa Apavada method, so it points out to what is Atma as what it is not. So that is a Tatastha Lakshana as an indicator. So which is apart from the three bodies and from the five sheaths and the witness of the three states. And then following this, the Tattvabodha defines one by one what is gross body, what is subtle body, what is causal body, what are the various parts of it, what are the five sheaths, what is Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, right? Anandamaya Kosha defines all of them, and then defines all the three states, right? Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. So basically detailed uh, definitions. It's basically a book of definitions. So in a top-down approach, as a tree, it defines each word, each technical term to a formal definition, which can be used for any of our further study. And then it also defines what is Sat, what is Chit, what is Ananda. So all these things are defined so further, right? So Atma kaha, what is Atma? Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharirad, Vyatiriktaha, Panchakosha Atitaha San, Avastatraya Sakshi, Satchid Ananda Swarupaha San, Yath Tishtati Sa Atma. That which is existing, that way is Atma. So this way Atma is defined, and I will not dig deeper than this. Then it defines Brahman. So, and how this world is there. So actually, Tattvabodha, what it does is, by analyzing this Atma Kaha, this entire section, basically gives the Tvam Pada Nirnaya. So what is Tvam? What is the individual? And how the essence of the individual is nothing but consciousness, which is Atma. So that is the whole topic of this section. It beautifully presents how a detailed analysis of the individual in terms of three bodies, five sheaths, and three states, and all this, and then shows how essentially the individual is the Atma, right? And then similarly, then Tattvabodha Nirnaya is done, where it very detailedly it analyzes how from Brahman this universe arises. So Brahma Ashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. Right? So Maya exists in the form of Sattva Rajas Tamas Guna, dependent on Brahman, Brahma Ashraya. So just like how fire and its power to burn, which is there, right? So basically the power of burning is Maya, and the fire itself is Brahman. So Brahman and Maya cannot be separated. And so dependent on Brahman, Maya exists in the form of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And then it defines what is Sattva, what is Rajas, what is Tamas, what is Maya, and then how from Sattva arises the five senses and the four aspects of the mind. So they are all enumerated, and formal definitions for all the five senses and all the four aspects of the mind, Manas, Chitta, Buddhi, Ahankara, is given. And also the Adhisthana Devatas for all of these, each of them are given. And then from Rajas arises the five action organs and the five pranas. The formal definitions for all of these are given. And then from the Tamas aspects arises the five gross elements, and what is called as the Panchikaranam is described in detail. And so thus, all these, the 24 cosmic principles of the Sankhya philosophy, whatever it gives, like the same thing Vedanta adopts at this point as part of the universe description, right? So they explained very detailed definitions for each of these, and who is the Adhisthana Devata, everything is explained. So, right, the preceding deities are explained, and also it shows how at the cosmic level, all these things are put together, and that is what is the universe. Right? So the gross elements, the 5 gross elements that form the Virat, and the 5 the subtle world that form all those form the Hiranyagarbha. Right? So all these things are described how this various Adhisthana Devatas put together is the Ishvara at the cosmic level. And thus, it is also shown that this entire universe is Ishvara, and the essence of this entire universe is Brahman, because that is where everything comes from, and that is pure consciousness. So that is how the Tattvabodha Nirnaya is done in this section. And then there is a beautiful summary of the whole thing. So, Evam Pinda Brahmanda Yor Aikyam Sambhutam. So, thus the identity of the microcosm and macrocosm is established. So, by giving the first Tvampada Nirnaya, then Tattvabodha Nirnaya gives the full details and then establishes that the Pindanda and Brahmanda are the same. Right? So, Evam Pinda Brahmanda Yor Aikyam Sambhutam, it explains logically. And then, so now where does the difference comes from? There's a beautiful statement here. Stula Sharira Abhimani Jivanamakam Brahma Pratibhimbam Bhavati Sa Eva Jivaha Prakritya Sa Swasmat Ishwaram Bhinnatvena Janati. So, the Jiva, by identifying with the Stula Sharira, here Stula Adi, you can say like the Stula and other Shariras. So, Stula Sharira Abhimani, Jiva Namakam, Brahma Pratibhimbam Bhavati. Right? So, it's a reflection of Brahman. Like Krishna tells in the 15th chapter, right? Mama Iva Amsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Right? So, basically, like that is basically the Jiva is a reflection of Brahman on the Stula and Shariras. Paramathanji explains as original consciousness, reflecting medium, reflected consciousness, right? Like, so basically, like the Brahma Pratibimba, basically RC, the reflected consciousness. And so that is the way he explains. And the Stula Sharira, this is the reflecting medium. And when the original consciousness gets reflected on the reflecting medium, we get the reflected consciousness. So that is what this sentence explains. Sayeva jivaha prakritya sasmat Ishwaram Pinnatvena Janati. So because of that, he considers himself separate from Ishvara. So now what is the problem? Because of that, all samsara arises. So that he explains in the next sentences. Avidya upadi san atma jiva ityuchate, maya upadi san ishvara ityuchate. So what is the difference between jiva and ishvara? Very simple. Avidya upadi san atma jiva ityuchate. So atma is the same, the pure consciousness, and with avidya upadi it is called ishvara. With maya upadi, with avidya upadi it is called jiva, and with maya upadi it is called ishvara. So it is just the adjunct which is different. So at the individual level, with avidya as the adjunct, the same pure consciousness reflects as jiva, and at the universal level, with maya as the upadi, the same pure consciousness reflects on this entire universe as ishvara, right? And then evam upadi bedat jiva ishvara yor veda drishtihi yavat paryantam tishtati tavat paryantam janma maranadi rupa samsaro na nivartate. So as long as this, because of this upadi vedam, upadi difference, jiva ishvara drishti, so this difference between jiva and ishvara is upheld. Yavat paryantam tishtati, till then tavat paryantam janma maranadi rupa samsara na nivartate. So till then the samsara in the form of janma, marana, etc. will not be gone. So, tasmat, so for that reason, tasmat karanena na jiva ishvarayor veda buddhihi svikarya. So, because of that, don't consider the separation between jiva and ishvara. So because of the considering the difference is where samsara comes. So don't consider these differences. So this way, jiva ishvara aikyam is very beautifully described here. And then, so comes the Mahavakya Vichara. So there's a beautiful explanation of Tattvamasi in Tattvabodha. So Stula Sukshma Sharira Abhimani Tvam Pada Vachyartaha. So the literal meaning of Tvam is Stula Sukshma Sharira Abhimani. Right? So that's what we consider normally. When you say I, we consider this body and mind as the I. So that is the Vachyartha of Tvam Pada. Whereas Upadi Vinirmuktam Samadhi Dasha Sampannam Shuddham Chaitanyam Twampada Lakshyartha. But the actual meaning, the implied meaning of Twampada Lakshyartha is the without the Upadi Vinirmuktam Samadhi Sampannam Samadhi Dasha Sampannam. So during this state of Samadhi, whatever is seen as Shuddha Chaitanyam, that is the actual implied meaning of Tvam. As pure consciousness, I am the actual self, which is the Chaitanyam. So that is the actual implied meaning of Tvam. Similarly, Evam, Sarvagya, 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 Sarvagnyatvam, Adi, Vishishta Ishvaraha, Tatpada Vachyartham. So similarly, what is the literal meaning of Tatpadam? The Ishvara who has got Sarvagnya and other characteristics, right? Omniscience, omnipotence, right? So we have the three characteristics which is described in the Gita, Bhoktaram, Tapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So he says he is the omniscient one, he is a Sarvaloka Maheshwara, and he is a Sugridam Sarvabhutanam. He is a compassionate one, right? So that Ishvara, right, with this Sarvagnya and other characteristics, also called as the Bhaga, right? Bhagavan, we say. So when full measure of Bhaga, that is the Ishvara, that is the Vachyartha of Tatpadam. Whereas what is the Lakshyartha? Upadi Shunyam, Shuddha Chaitanyam, Tatpada Lakshyartham. But without any of these Upadis, the pure consciousness, that is the Lakshyartha of Ishvara. So when we look at the Vachyartha, Tvam and Tat are different. Ishvara, Jiva and Ishvara are very different. Whereas if you look at the Lakshyartha, the implied meaning, when the Upadis are removed, then both of them are become just pure consciousness, right? Which is the Lakshyartha, and in that sense, they are the same. Evam cha Jiva Ishvarayo Chaitanya Rupena Abhede Bhadakad Bhavaha. Right? So basically, this way, as pure consciousness, there is no difference between Jiva and Ishvara. So the usual example given is the waves and the ocean, right? So the ocean has got lot of waves, and so as a wave, with the Nama and Rupa of the wave, the ocean, the waves are all different from the ocean, and the waves are all different from each other. But as water, the waves are not different from the ocean. So that is the Lakshyartha and Vachyartha. Now coming to the last one. So after, so Tattvabodha describes each of them in much more detail. And then finally, the final section talks about the jivanmukta. Who is a jivanmukta? And he gives that by the Brahmaivaham Asmi iti aparoksha jnanena nikhila karma bandhana vinirmuktaha syat. So basically, the Jivan Mukta is completely free from all bondage. And how? Because of his knowledge that Brahmaivaham Asmi. Brahma eva aham asmi iti aparoksha jnanena. The direct knowledge, because of that, he has this, and he understands that I am the pure consciousness. I am the substratum on which this universe is superimposed. I am mere witness, just like the screen watching the movie, non-participating and unaffected, and I am free. So this is the description of the Jivan Mukta. And the Tattvabodha describes what are the different karma, Sanchita karma, Agami karma. It describes all those, gives the formal definitions for all that to explain what is the Jivan Mukta state. So this way, the Tattvabodha is a complete Vedanta text, gives the formal definitions for all the important terms, and that way it actually gives the complete Tattva Jnana. And it's a beautiful text. And you take Swami Tejomayanji's book, is a small book, and Chinmaya Mission book. It's a I read through several commentaries of Tattvabodha. I found that is the best, simplest, and straightforward book. You can take that and you can read. Thank you.
Thank you, Gokulmuthu ji, for a very wonderful introduction to Tattvabodha. I think that is one of the most basic level text that is very, very much important for any seeker of Vedanta to familiarize themselves with the basic terminologies, definitions, without which everything else would be very difficult to make sense of. So, thank
Yes.
you very much for this very wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Viewers,